So I'm going to be talking today about enabling a sales culture. We've heard a lot about what it takes to sell well. We've heard a lot about what it takes to not be a good leader in sales and what not to do, and how to use AI to kind of help our teams grow. Before that, I'm going to introduce myself a little bit, give you a little bit more about my background. How does a special education teacher go into this world? So I started off as a special education teacher. During that time, I gave valuable insights on what it takes to actually meet students where they're at. So every student learns in a different way. They need different tools, they need different strategies implemented to help them grow. And I was able to do that for 2 years. After that, I then took the random leap to a company called Nixon Power Services, which is a generator company. I served as an intern, first ever intern at Nixon, and then went on full-time to be a sales coordinator. Basically found out during my internship, they kind of were like, you don't really know where you fit in here, but we know that you work well, and we know that you're driven, and we believe that, there's a lot of value. And so started off as sales coordinator, worked for somebody who is in charge of our inside sales team, outside sales team, project managers, and project engineers. So with that, I got to learn a lot about what they are required to present, what KPIs they're required to present on and meet, and what challenges they were having. From there, I took on a marketing role, so we had a third party doing all of our marketing at Nixon, and started traveling to different events, coordinating events for the team, and then was basically like, well, if you're at these events, how do you take pictures for us? Then that fast forwarded into, if we buy you Photoshop and InDesign, will you teach yourself graphics? And so, sure, there's YouTube, there's everything out there. So I took on a marketing role at Nixon. From there, COVID hit, and we had recently purchased Microsoft Dynamics out-of-the-box CRM for our sales team. The generator sales process is a little bit more complex than your typical process. So generator lead time is going to be 1.5 to 2 years. And so there's a lot more project management that goes into it and a lot less of the sales. And so what we decided to do was take Microsoft Dynamics and add a bunch of customizations to it in order to track the generator project management process. So we brought everything from inside sales coding to finally getting the opportunity closed, following up with the customer, then handing it off to project management, then handing it off to project engineering to do the startup and make sure the equipment was all set. So the entire process is baked into our customized CRM that we call TaskBridge. When COVID hit, other generator companies came to us and were very curious about why we were still so successful, what we were doing differently, and it really came down to our customized solution, TaskBridge. So we decided to monetize that and sell that to other companies as well. So that was when we launched our first TaskBridge client back, I think it was 5 years ago, and since then we now have 6 other companies that are utilizing our tool. From there, University of Tennessee reached out to me. They saw that I was very passionate about teaching and learning and wanted to see if I would serve on the advisory board. So I've been on the advisory board for digital marketing and now women in leadership. So today I'm very passionate about learning, I'm very passionate about teaching, and that has kind of all led me into what now I'm very passionate about being a leader for my team. So we're going to start with a not so great statistic, but you probably would have guessed it by now. So 70% of employees leave their jobs due to poor leadership. Most of the time you would think it's due to pay or due to not being promoted, but it really has to come down to leadership. Statistics will show that team members will actually stay at their companies even if they're paid less if they believe that their leader is mentoring them and that they're investing in them and they're growing throughout their career. All of that comes down to what we've discovered as a mentorship gap. So mentors are failing to implement a formal mentorship program. This means that when the time that you are onboarded on There's usually a 30-day training in most typical companies, and then after that, it's kind of sink or swim, here you go. So that's very failed. It's not going to work, especially in the new generations. This old school mentality doesn't work. In addition, they fail to foster a culture where peer-to-peer learning thrives. They fail to demonstrate mentorship themselves, and they fail to identify and empower team members to act as peer mentors. When I was serving back as a sales coordinator, part of my job to get to know every part of the sales process was to ride along with each team member and shadow each team member. So when I was riding along with the outside sales, he was a newer team member, and he had to do a call report. So the manager was making him log all of his calls, and he had to call his manager at the end of the day, say how many people he called and how that all went. In addition to that, I've seen other team leaders that have tracked their activities, and really none of that helps your team. That doesn't teach them how to sell. You're not teaching them anything. You're just throwing, like we've said before, a number at them and expecting them to hit it. So what do teams actually need from leadership? These are 3 things that I believe every team needs. They need empathy, clear vision, and constructive feedback. So empathy, they need to understand that the individual motivators and learning styles of each team member. Each team member, as we saw through the sales DNA and through other culture indexes that my company does, each team member is motivated in a different way. So some people may be money, some people may be growing in their career, some people may be just be providing for their family. But you have to understand that as a mentor. Next, clear vision. So aligning projects with updated tools and resources that align with organizational goals. This is where Dextegon comes into play. This is where customized CRMs come into play. You can't just throw a number at an outside salesperson and expect them to hit it without the tools that they need in order to get there. So making sure that you are up to date on all the tools, making sure that you are looking into AI, making sure that you're incorporating that with your team is something that your team is going to be passionate about and be able to grow more with. Third, constructive feedback. So consistent balance of praise and actual input that drives motivated results. So this balance is tricky sometimes. The feedback, we always want feedback, but sometimes we have a hard time listening to it. Sometimes we have a hard time actually changing our behavior based on their feedback. And so making sure that you're creating an environment where people feel open and honest to share that feedback, and they actually see that something is being done with that feedback. So what I've seen in the past is we go through all the what's working in our team, what's not working in our team, nothing happens with it. That's just going to make the team become frustrated, ultimately making them leave the company. So all of this comes down to sales enablement. What is sales enablement? Sales enablement is the process of equipping sales teams with the tools, training, and resources needed to engage buyers effectively and close deals efficiently. So basically, it's taking everything that the team needs and encompassing it into this. Recently, our company took on the task of integrating Dextegon with our sales team. And so this is kind of a blueprint that we followed when doing this. The first thing that we needed to do was find subject matter experts. So in our sales team, we probably have 75% of our sales team has been there for 20 plus, 25 plus years. So more of the tenured folks. The other 25% are newer. So they are right out of college. They probably did inside sales quoting for about 2 years and now have been put into outside sales. So I knew from traditionally working with these team members before that the more tenured folks would be a little bit more hesitant to use a tool like this. But they are the ones who have the most knowledge about customers and actually have the most knowledge on how to sell. Whether they're willing to share it or not is another thing, but that goes back to their motivation. So I took some of our more tenured folks and I had them create customized scripts that we would load into Dextegon. Then we did our pilot testing. So the people that I chose to do the pilot testing were some of the newer team members that I thought would be more likely to use the tool and also would have better results from that. I also was thinking, if these newer team members are coming up with these answers and doing pitches that the more tenured team members are also doing, they're both having success, that's going to make the tenured team members probably think about that this tool could potentially benefit me as well. So we've done pilot testing, we've gathered feedback and refined the system. Then before we did that, we did a kickoff call of team alignment. So I wanted to make sure that the team all understood what this tool was going to do and how it would benefit them. Likelihood of your team members using a tool that they don't see benefit from, very slim. So wanted to make sure that they knew what was kind of in it for them, which comes back into continuous engagement. So we did different incentivized systems throughout the time. We did daily check-ins, and then we had a weekly feedback where each week we would meet together as a team and talk about what went well, what didn't go well, and how we can improve that in the future. So since then, we've seen a ton of impact within the tool, even after a very short time of using it. One of the most important things, though, is a testimonial from one of the sales team members. He had actually been sales team member for, I think he's been doing it for 15 years, but he's never recorded himself and listened to himself speak. So that was something that was very eye-opening. The amount of times that he was saying things could have gone better. He was very, it was very eye-opening, I'll just say that. So I think that that's an important lesson because it's something that Dextegon allows you to record yourself and you do have that video content, but it also tells you what you could have done better and then coaches you how to improve that. So that's what I love about it, especially coming from an education background, is it's not just something that tells you what's right or wrong, but it creates a customized plan for you in order to improve that. So these are the keys to long-term success with the tool, and I think with integrating any tool for that matter. We can't just expect that you throw a new tool at your team and they're going to use it, and after you've implemented it, it's going to be smooth sailing from there. You need continuous check-ins throughout that time. So meeting once a week with your team, talking about how it's going, making that a part of your daily conversations. We have what's called weekly L10 meetings. Some of you guys may know what that is. But basically every week you meet, you go through different issues that you have, different rocks that you're working on, different company updates. And so make this a part of your conversation. How's the tool doing? What do we like about it? What do we not? Encouraging that feedback culture along the way. Leveraging data and strategic decisions. So with Dextegon, it'll give you different things that each team member needs to work on. And so maybe looking at that and saying, okay, I have a team member who really knows the content, but they're very poor on their emotion and how they present that. But then maybe you have another team member that is newer and doesn't know the content as well, but is very boisterous, very energetic, and has a good presence. Maybe you pair those two team members together so they can learn from each other. Celebrate team wins. So we also do this during our weekly team meetings. We talk about what was one thing that you were proud of this week and what is one thing that you can improve on as well. So celebrating that together. And then investing in continuous training and development. So training is not a one and done thing. You need to continue working on that. You need to remember that different technology is always coming out, and even if you've been in the business for 30 plus years, there's always something new to learn. So why does this all matter? Here's a quote. It says, leadership is about making others better as a result of your presence and making sure that impact lasts in your absence. So when I was a special education teacher, I dealt with a lot of behavioral kiddos that needed a lot of support, and I was very concerned when I left how that would all go. They had learned to rely on me for a really long time. I was their person, and so this was a very emotional decision that I had to make when I decided to leave education. I left when they were in 4th grade, came back for their 8th grade graduation, and they had done great. They were smiling, they were doing great in school, and sorry. And a lot of that has to do with the tools that I was able to give them and the tools that they were able to remember to implement even in my absence. So now it's time to invest in the future. We need to take the next step, build resilience, empower growth, and transform our team.